So let's talk about the play-in tournament tomorrow. Tomorrow we have two games. Yeah, are the play-in tournament, which are the Heat and the Bulls, and the Pelicans and the Kings. These two matchups are key matchups because whoever wins is going to the playoffs, and whoever doesn't is not going to the playoffs. And that's basically about as simple as it is. Like, there's no way that tomorrow is not an exciting day for any team which is playing. You know, for the Heat and the Bulls, I do think the Heat are going to win, but they're going to miss Jimmy Butler. And if you guys don't know what happened, because of Kelly Oubre and the way that he landed on Jimmy Butler's knee, Jimmy Butler is now out for the season basically until maybe the second round if he comes back by that time, but I honestly doubt that he does. For the West, they're going to start their games pretty soon. I don't know when they necessarily start their games, but I think that the entirety of the playoffs start in the 20th of April. And we already have some of the games set. We have the Cavaliers versus the Magic, the Timberwolves versus the Suns, the Knicks versus the Sixers, and the Nuggets versus the Lakers, all coming on April 20th. Now, another thing that we could see with this playing tournament is the fact that without Jimmy Butler in the lineup, who do the Heat really have? They have Tyler Hero. He's a great player, but he is not going to win you a game by himself. And that is the reality of the situation. Tyler Hero's great, and he really does have skill. But him and Bam Adebayo are going to be able maybe to win one game against the Bulls, but then go out there and have to play 2 days later in the first round against probably against the Celtics would be something that would absolutely destroy your team. Now, if Heat culture is that strong, please lead me to believe it because I want the Heat to win and I want them to win the championship because I'm a Heat fan. But I unfortunately don't think that they're going to make it through. For the Bulls, if they get into the playoffs, they're losing in the first round, but it would at least give them more hope that they have a chance. You know, it is one thing for the Bulls to win a playoff series, which is something that seems completely out of reach and does not seem possible, and for them to win a game. You know, if they win this game against the Heat, they got to the playoffs this season, and they're happy because when Lonzo comes back, now you have Kobe White and Zach LaVine, and barring injury, I mean, you would be much happier making it to the playoffs and losing in the first round to the best team in the NBA and the Celtics than having another season where you barely miss out on the playoffs and where your guys look bad. I do think that this game is probably the decider if the Bulls are going to rebuild or not, because even though we do have this very important matchup, the Bulls need to make some changes even if they win or do not lose. Even if they win or lose when they play the playing tournament. Now, let's talk about this injury. Jimmy Butler has now an MCL sprain, which is going to take him out for several weeks, probably 4 to 5 weeks. This is honestly very surprising, as Jimmy Butler is one of the toughest players in the league. But with him having played 40 minutes, I don't think he made it much better, and I don't think he's going to be able to play for the next few matches. As we know, Jimmy Butler spraining his MCL completely changes everything that the Heat had going for them. No longer do you look at yourself as a second round or Eastern Conference Finals team. Now you're looking at yourself as let's get out of the play-in against the Bulls. Because the Heat this season have not been that good. I hope that Jaime Jaquez can step up, that Tyler Hero can step up, and that Bam can step up so that at least they can win this game and make the playoffs. But if the Heat do not, then I think it would be time to either rebuild or look for another star player. There's no way that the Heat can continuously rely on being a playing team, which makes it very far into the playoffs, and doesn't have a secondary star to complement Jimmy Butler because that is not a winning recipe. Now, for the Pelicans and Kings, they're a completely different story because the Pelicans and the Kings is a matchup for ages. Whoever wins this game is going to be very exciting. The biggest problem here is that I don't think Zion will be back either. With that being said, Zion is the biggest, influence of this game. He's the best player by far. But I do think that there is a problem with this team. With the Pelicans not having Zion, or maybe having an injured Zion, it has costed them to basically have to reanalyze themselves and rethink their offense. The Pelicans were going to beat the Lakers if Zion was healthy. That's my prediction. But since they didn't, they have to go up against the Kings. And the Kings look like they want it. It looks like they want to be in the playoffs. And especially Keegan Murray, with the way that he played last game against Golden State, it was like we were seeing a whole different man out there than just this rookie which came in last season. So when it comes to the Kings, they're very clutch. They're very good in playoff series. What we have to see is how far can they make it with the roster that they have. It's obvious they've been set back by the roster because this season their roster is not half of what it was last season, and that's just the reality of the situation. So what are the big questions for, a team like the Kings? First is, can you get your offense together? Can De'Aaron step up to play? I don't know if De'Aaron is injured, if he has any nagging, thing on his knee or something like that. But he hasn't been playing up to speed this year, and it's cost his team a lot of seeding. As last year they got 50 wins, and they would have been comfortably a 5th seed or a 6th seed with that type of, consistency again. This season, the NBA didn't even, nod him with an all-star, or the fans didn't give him an all-star vote. And even though the West was the most competitive conference and he did shoot better from three, there is something to be said about him not even being considered for half of the awards that he was considered last year. He was considered last year for a clutch player of the year, which he won, an all-star, which he got, an NBA all-NBA player, which he got, and he was even put in the MVP and most improved conversations while doing all of these things. I think that De'Aaron Fox is a great player, but the way that he's just been consistently underperforming, or his team has actually led him to underperform, has been spectacular. Yes, he has good numbers, but I feel like the things that he was doing last year, from anyone who was watching the games and the way that he was taking over those fourth quarters, I don't know if it's because of coaching, the team that it's around, but it just hasn't looked that good. For Sabonis, he obviously had his legendary season where he broke the double-double record. He won the rebound champion, and he was great this season. But I do think that also we have to say that Sabonis also needs to step up in the big moments. Sabonis is a guy who normally plays pretty passively, and he'll just go and do his thing, and he won't, really get involved, and he'll just make sure that he gives you an incredible stat line every single game, or at least that he gives you enough points, assists, and rebounds for you to be happy. But I do feel like there's a star component to him which we do not take into account in most cases, which we should hold him accountable. He's a star. He got traded to the Kings to be the secondary star. And the fact that he has not been able to go and exercise his stardom because he can't even, have the team, or the fact that he sometimes is kind of slow-footed when it comes to making the big plays or being the big player, I do believe that Sabonis needs to step up. Apart from that, I do not think the Pelicans are winning if Zion is not playing. And even if he is, the question really is with Zion, can you trust him when he's injured? Are you going to trust the fact that he can do all of the stuff that he does when he's not 100% in 100% health? And that is the real question for me. Zion has not shown that we can trust him if he's not at 100% health. So honestly, let's pray that Zion is fine, that Jimmy are fine, and that they can come back and play, which even I do not think is the case.